Okay, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. We're going to be starting soon, so if everyone can just take their seats. We're just running a little bit behind here, so we got to kind of get started. So, as the name of today's panel would suggest, we're going to be talking about media and the role of media in the kind of issues that our community is currently dealing with, and how to, in a strategic and in an effective way, interrupt false media narratives and present truthful ones, and once again, or perhaps, if you will, for the first time, to center truth in the public discourse, particularly as it concerns issues that our community faces. So I'd like to start out by introducing our esteemed panelists here. To my right, I have Ibrahim Hooper, my boss and communications director here at CAIR. He's also a co-founder of CAIR, and he's had a many decades long career. Many decades long career in both media work and in activism.
I'm always on the watch for ageist remarks. So.
Then we have Hazami Barmada. She's the founder and the chair of the Humanity Lab Foundation and host of the Humanity Lab podcast. She's a frequent international public speaker and a commentator on current affairs. She's also held several posts at the UN and has been widely published across a host of media platforms. Thank you. Next we have Hena Zuberi. She's the editor-in-chief of MuslimMatters.org, which is a online Muslim news and commentary magazine. She's also leads the DC office of the organization Justice for All, which is a human rights group, and she has her work has been focused on advocacy for the Rohingya and for the Uyghurs who are facing genocide in Myanmar and in China. And then next we have Tuqa Nuseirat, who's the executive director of the Institute for Social Policy and Understanding, ISPU. She's an expert on U.S. policy in the MENA region, and she has been in several posts on the Atlantic Council's Rafiq Hariri Center and on their Middle East programs. And then finally we have Cenk Uyghur, who's, as I'm sure many of you know, the founder, CEO, and co-host of the Young Turks, which is one of the largest independent media networks worldwide. And he's also a co-founder of the Justice Dems. So, if I can, just a round of applause for all our panelists. So, I want to start it off by asking this. This is kind of I guess, a very open-ended thing, and I'd like for each of you to give some remarks on this. So one of, of course, we live in an age of very immense and very constant change in all of our kind of social structures, and perhaps none of them more so than in the way that that the media has changed, and in the way that media markets and media ecosystems and the kind of way that we consume information. So how can we as a community, how can we adapt to the constantly shifting and constantly changing media atmosphere, and how can we utilize emerging and new forms of alternative media to advance our goals and to fight against what we're aiming to fight against?
Want me to start?
Sure, you can.
Well, Bismillah. I tend to make a case for the legacy media, as they call it. Sometimes they say, well, legacy media is dying. Newspapers, TV, radio, all that kind of thing. But I tell you, the history of CAIR is a history of interaction with the legacy media. From day one, we saw our work as being in a synergistic impact with civil rights, media, all feeding on one another. For instance, when we started, we would do a campaign to defend a sister who had been fired for wearing hijab. And you do that in the media, and you are able to, alhamdulillah, win that case, get an apology, get the job back, whatever. And then when you go to do the next one, you show that you had the victory on the previous one. And it creates a snowball effect in terms of civil rights. And initially, we used to do all of these hijab cases, workplace prayer cases. They don't come up so much anymore. You know why? Because, alhamdulillah, we were able to create a different environment in the workplace, particularly, where now there's religious exemptions to these kinds of things. But it was a slow process of just a very small organization at that time having a great impact, because we had a multiplying effect using media relations techniques. And that has been kind of the core effort of CAIR and continues to this day. I mean, others will speak to the social media and all this, but it really is the same thing. You're trying to get the message out to the greatest number of people. And the civil rights work feeds off the media work, and it creates, as I said, a snowball effect. You know, people say no more legacy media, but I jotted down a few figures. I asked the companies that we contract with to monitor media viewership, this kind of thing. CAIR in the past year, from August to August of last year, had 87,000 media mentions. So in local, national, whatever it is, 87,000 times. National viewership. Now this is independent monitoring of when CAIR's issues are mentioned. You know, CAIR did this, CAIR did that. 109 million viewers of the stories that we were able to get in the legacy media. And if you had to pay for those stories as an ad, you know, the length of time in that broadcast system, $1.4 million. That's at the national level. So if you wanted to wage a campaign on a particular issue, ones that we're dealing with on a daily basis, you would have had to spend $1.4 million to buy the ads on these same legacy media outlets. Now at the local level, and I think we're going to be emphasizing more local media relations in coming years, because I think that's where you're having a real impact when you change the narrative at the local level. We had 38 million views, and with an ad value of $2.8 million. So again, if you went to buy those ads, you'd have to spend $2.8 million. So I make the case, maybe because that's what I've been doing for so many decades, but doing the traditional media relations, because even if you do the traditional media relations that feeds into the social media and the other ways of building a narrative, and it's all complementary. And as I said in the beginning, you want to create a synergy, a snowball effect for these kinds of things. So.
I think when we talk about media, we should be looking at a communications landscape, not just media as separate entities. We're seeing a revitalization also of mailer campaigns in a way of getting directly to people's doorsteps, where you bypass the layers of kind of selective understanding of how to engage with people. And the paradigm right now is shifting so fast. The narratives are shifting so fast, and there's really a very big opportunity for us, and we're seeing that with all the new forms of media, to get access to people's ears in a way that we need to shift hearts and minds that then change patterns of consumer patterns, election, voting patterns, and so on, that then change the culture in which we're living. So I think, looking at traditional media, I would absolutely agree with you. I think the demographic that traditional media reaches is a very important one. They tend to be more older, they tend to be in parts of the country that aren't impacted by our direct activism, and they're people that are oftentimes higher socioeconomic status, and so they're able to fund things more so. And that's where I think advocacy and creative engagement comes in a way that we haven't seen before. We, for example, here in Washington, D.C., had a protest that we had, which was a besiegement of a media complex, 400 North Capitol, which is NBC, MSNBC, CNBC, Fox News, The Hill, The Guardian, multiple people in the same place. They had been refusing to cover Palestine and the ethnic cleansing and genocide properly. So we worked with people inside the media companies to tell us where all the studios were and what time they recorded. We got megaphones that were so large and so wonderful that we are in the background of so many web reports to where they had to literally live on air say, I am so sorry, there's First Amendment activity for Gaza, because had they not even said it, you could hear us literally say, media lies, Gaza dies, drowning their megaphones, drowning their speakers. They brought in audio engineer after audio engineer to try to silence us over a month. And then we figured out where the windows were. So we put messages on balloons. We floated the balloons up. You can literally see Meet the Press while she's speaking on air. She goes, right behind her, a big balloon floats up that says, media lies, Gaza dies. There are creative ways to force the media to listen. And the reason this is important is that we then used social media to get people to go and message the editors and the reporters and the funders and the donors. And our campaign was so successful in DC that we got NBC News to fully abandon their studios in Washington in front of the Capitol Hill. That was powerful because then their staff came up to us and said, what could we do? It was powerful because the online world was asking, what is that noise? To the fact that I actually had to fact check Grok, who said, I think those protests are anti-Trump. I'm like, no, Grok, these protests are not anti-Trump. And then they fact corrected, and now we reached a whole nother array of people about media complicity in creating narratives that dehumanize Muslims and Palestinians and black and brown bodies. And so creatively, I think we need to understand how these entities and agencies work. We need to understand how social media works, and we need to create a coalition across multiple platforms to figure out how to communicate effectively and in a way that then galvanizes interest to change public opinion on topics. And I think that is where we are right now. It's a very powerful space to be, and I'll end with just a quote, or actually two. Until lions have their own historians, the history of the hunt will always glorify the hunter, the African proverb. And the other quote, which is a George Orwell quote, is the most effective way to destroy people is to not deny and obliterate their own understanding of their history. And we are in a moment now where we're not asking to be heard. We are being heard in a way that the landscape is not sure how to deal with. And so we're in a powerful moment, and it's really about how do we define it moving forward.
Thank you, Hazami. So the Prophet ﷺ used every communication platform that was available to him at that time. He hung notices at the door of the Kaaba. He went to every city fair. He invited people over to dinner. So these are all forms of communication. And So what does that mean about learning from the Sunnah and making this a part of your worship? And so for us, so one of the things that that is part of my portfolio is during COVID, we found Muslim Network TV. We said, okay, what is missing? Because every time as a director of advocacy for Justice for All, I would go into a congressperson's office, they would often ask me, who are the Muslim newspapers? What are the Muslim radio stations? What is the Muslim TV channel? Because they want to be in front of your faces so you can vote for them. And we realized we don't have a Muslim, our newspapers have died, which is focused in California, Muslim Link in the DMV. Our news stations, Radio Islam has, so then Radio Islam was a part of our sister organization, and so we decided at that time during COVID when everybody was broadcasting from their dining tables that we can do this too. So we built Muslim Network TV, which is now on satellite, and our satellite guy tells us that after Al Jazeera, we're the second most watched channel, 24 hours, North American, covers Canada, Mexico, and the US, and then we're on YouTube and all of the other social media outlets too, so alhamdulillah. So that, like building, I used to work for CNBC, and I left CNBC because they would send down a list of words we weren't allowed to use, And I made dua at that time to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah, let me do this in the right way. And so 20 years, like I went away from TV, worked in print media, and then, that was such a big moment for me to come back and just be in front of the TV screen again as an anchor. And now we have Muslim News. It's an hour long every day that you can watch from our perspective, right? Not someone else's perspective. The other thing that I think we have definitely got to stop doing is stop just lionizing these Zionist rags. And we're so excited when we get an op-ed published in them. Yes, great, we need our opinions out there as well, but give value to your own platforms. Give value to your own media outlets. There are, like when we publish something on Muslim Matters or other, we used to have Alt-Muslim before, Alt-Muslima, that is valuable. If we don't value our own selves, nobody else is going to value us. And so that's another very, very important part of this. And I'm going to talk about this more in detail. Using AI now for our work and training AI, because we can't leave all that training to people who want us dead. So taking time out to train AI. So one of the things that we did at Justice for All, we're an anti-genocide human rights organization. We've been doing this since Bosnia, the Burma Task Force, Bosnia Task Force, Save Uyghur campaign. And we realized from the time of Bosnia, now even looking at our Save India campaign, how the media is so complicit in genocide. So as in October 2023, we launched Palestine Media Watch, which was an accountability campaign to a media watchdog to hold media accountable for what it was doing in Gaza. And alhamdulillah, now our work is part of a chapter on media studies, because this is one of the kind. And what we did is we worked with Tech for Palestine, and they came up with a tool, because when we went to masajid and talked to aunties and uncles, and they said, we're not comfortable engaging with media. We don't know what to say sometimes. So aside from training people on media advocacy, one of the things that we developed was the Words of Justice, which if you all go on that app, I would bookmark it. We put up campaigns on that on a daily basis. The AI, we trained the AI with a 100-page media Palestine Media Watch Guide, which was based on the work of scholars from Gaza, Palestinian journalists, and we update that on a daily basis. We have a staff now, mashallah, of 6 people who do this on a daily basis. And we put out campaigns in the community to hold media accountable when they use the word Gaza or Hamas sponsored or Hamas run Gaza Ministry of Health. They do not do that for anybody else. They don't say Republican run Central of Disease Control. They don't say Modi run Foreign Ministry. This is the only time they do this is when it comes to Palestine. So changing that narrative, and there have been many wins that I would love to spend more time on, but I will give it over to Tuqa, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. So thank you, CAIR. Thank you for the invitation and for convening these important conversations today. As Ismail mentioned, I work at the Institute for Social Policy and Understanding, where we do research and education about American Muslims. So we try to provide data so that organizations like the ones represented here can make a case and back it up with data. And I want to take a few minutes to ground our conversation in that context, and really dive into how the media represents and misrepresents Muslims. As many of us know, Muslims represent 1% of the population in the United States, and that's about 3.5 million people. Of course, there's a little bit of debate on, around the number, but it's still a very small percentage. Americans say, almost half of Americans say they've never met a Muslim, and almost the same amount say they know little to nothing about Islam. So this is important because when they don't know a Muslim and they don't know anything about Islam, their perception of what that is transmitted through the media, through print media, through social media, through television media. And that's the connection that we have to make in order to create more representation. So we know that what they see through their phones, through the television sets, is overwhelmingly negative. And I just want to put into perspective how negative it is. It's not just anecdotal that we are, whining about the media misrepresenting us. A couple of data points. So one study found that the average article mentioning Muslims in US newspapers was more negative than 80% of all articles in their sample. That means you'd have to read 6 articles in a newspaper, random articles, before you find one as negative as the one that mentions Muslims. And that's in print media. Another study found that attacks by Muslim perpetrators receive nearly 5 times as much coverage as attacks by non-Muslim perpetrators. And we know that attacks by Muslim perpetrators are much less frequent. ISPU's own analysis of the New York Times and Washington Post archives shows that in cases of violent ideological plots that were not even carried out, Muslim perceived perpetrators received an average of 770% more media coverage than those that were perceived to be non-Muslim perpetrators. And this is one that you're easily going to remember if you want to take away from here. A study by 416 Labs covering 25 years span of the coverage of the New York Times portrayed Islam and Muslims more negatively than cancer and cocaine. So we know that the framing of Muslims is overwhelmingly negative. It's that we're foreign, violent, misogynistic, untrustworthy, and threatening. And after October 7th, we've seen that that has ramped up. The dehumanization of Muslims and Palestinians has increased even more. And according to our own community, 60% of Muslims believe in 2017 that the representation of Islam and Muslims in the media is unfair. It's not just unfair, it's dangerous, and it's threatening to our community and to our democracy. And I want to end or wrap up on a hopeful note and make a connection between what we're talking about today and the policies that have an impact on our daily lives. So at ISPU, we just released a report called Stereotypes on Screen. I hope you'll go to ispu.org and check it out. And we had 700 participants in this study where we showed them a positive entertainment media show that had a positive representation of Muslims and one that had a negative representation of Muslims. And then we asked them questions about Muslims, about their warmth towards them, about social distancing, about policies related to Muslims, but also about anti-democratic policies. And what we found, first, is not surprising, that the ones that saw positive representations of Muslims felt more warmth, less desire to social distance from Muslims, and they were more willing to be oppose anti-Muslim policies. Think about all of the anti-Muslim policies that we hear about every day. What's more surprising is that those individuals were also more willing to oppose anti-democratic policies. So when we have better representation of Muslims and minorities in general, we are protecting our democracy, we are making it stronger, and we need to make sure that we understand that what people see in the news media and entertainment media on social media has a direct link to extremist policies that then restrict our rights as individuals, but even the broader community. And so we need to make sure that we're telling that story, that it's not just complaining that we're not being represented, but that there is a link between what happens when someone is getting arrested because of who they are. Before that, they watch something, or the political system promoted a certain narrative about American Muslims, about Palestinians, about any minority that is being attacked in the environment that we're in today. So look forward to discussing some ways we can counter that.
All right, I want to start by talking about what is media. I want to go back all the way to the beginning of time to explain what it is so that you understand how to use it, okay? So communication is uniquely human. It's part of what makes us human, and it's actually our biggest advantage by far, better than even the opposable thumb, okay? So because we were able to communicate with one another, we were able to form huge tribes. And these tribes were able to honestly conquer the planet, okay? So on this planet, the number one thing that has led to power is communication. Because communication leads to larger numbers, coordinating together and working as a team, okay? So communication eventually became media. So the more people that you talk to, the bigger your team is, the bigger your tribe is, and the more power you have. So media is power. So if you are speaking at home and you're talking to your sister and to your brother, you're talking to two people, and you've gotten a message out, okay? All right, good. You talk to your friends, there's 5 of you, and you vent, and that's good, and you got your message out, and maybe there's a guy who disagrees with you, you hashed it out, and you won 3 people over, okay? Now you go to the point that Ibrahim was making, you go on CNN and 1 million people are watching. Well, now you just reached 1 million people. Now how much more power do you have if you reached 1 million people instead of 2 people? Well, a lot more, isn't it? Right? So now, it doesn't mean you have to reach 1 million people at a time. It just means you have to be cognizant of how many people am I reaching, how much power do I have, right? So this power has been used against us my whole life here in America. So it has been, in the past, run exclusively by what we colloquially call mainstream media. And so I'm glad that CAIR is out there being good cop and reaching out and getting good positive press and fighting back on behalf of Muslim Americans who have suffered injustice and doing beautiful, brilliant work there, right? And they have for a long time. So that's good cop. I'm the bad cop, okay? Mainstream media is my enemy. So then they'll catch feelings over that. No, wait, let me understand this right. You smeared me my whole life, and then when I accurately say you're my opponent, now your feelings are hurt? No, I can assure you my feelings are much more hurt, okay? You painted me as a terrorist. You painted me as a bad guy. You painted me as some sort of dark and evil force my entire life. And by the way, this sister right here just proved it to you. In the numbers, it is indisputable. It is empirical that they have painted us as the enemy and as dark and evil when we did not deserve it. We did not deserve it. We did not do anything that merited that. So when an imperial power, and I love America, but yes, we are an imperial power, and there's reasons why I love America, and I can get into that, and it's important for you to love this country, and that's a second half that we need to discuss. But has America also done some bad things? Of course, every country does, right? And have we used our power in some bad ways? Of course we have, right? So now let's talk about a different country, Israel. Are they also an imperial power? Obviously they are. They are a larger military than the rest of the Middle East combined. They have nuclear weapons. They have the Iron Dome. They have attacked now I begin to lose count, 7. Sorry, yes, now 7 of their neighbors. And every time they bomb the capital of a nearby country, they say, self-defense. No, it's not self-defense. You're attacking them. Qatar did not attack you. You attacked Qatar. Period. Period. Anyone who says that otherwise is an obvious liar and is out to smear all of us, okay? So now mainstream media has been racist against us. Now, I never use the word racist anymore when I'm talking about voters, okay? And when I'm not, this is not a left or right thing, okay? So now right wing is beginning to be our allies in a way that is unprecedented, okay? We love it, okay? And what I was saying in the hallway to some brothers and sisters here is that good news for the right wing. Nobody believes in American sovereignty more than Muslim Americans, because we have had a foreign government smearing us in our government, our country, America. We have had them attack us over and over and over again and buy our politicians, and yes, they are definitely buying our politicians. Okay, so it is an empirical fact that AIPAC and the rest of the Israeli lobby has given 90% of Congress money. And it is an empirical fact that that same 90% votes with Israel every single time. Take all your money, work harder, America. Bob in Nebraska, you didn't work hard enough. Go do another shift, give it to Israel. Give it to Israel, okay? But the media, mainstream media says, if you notice that pattern, the most obvious pattern in the world, it also applies to big pharma, it applies to big oil, it applies to defense countries, it applies to everything. But mainstream media says, no, I don't see it. And in fact, if you see it, you hate Jews. What? What on God's green earth are you talking about? No, if you say that 90% of Congress gets money from Israeli lobby, true, but not allowed to say it, and that those guys vote with them, not allowed to say it, you're an anti-Semite. Who says that? Mainstream media says that. But wait a minute, is that true? Are those facts true? Absolutely. Is it your job as reporters to report the truth? Yes. Will you report that truth? No! Okay, well then you're not a reporter. Then you're a propagandist. Okay? And mainstream media has been doing propaganda on behalf of Israel my entire life. And that propaganda wasn't, if it was, hey, you know what? Go to Israel for tourism. They have lovely beaches. They have lovely cities. Same thing for Turkey. Oh, look at that, beautiful beaches and stuff. And it's positive. No problem. No problem. Everybody's a winner, okay? But it's actively negative propaganda against us. Wait a minute. So I'm supposed to sit back here and you tell me that when they control our Congress, and it is indisputable and empirical that they do, the Israeli lobby, not Jews, Jewish Americans, are some of the best fighters for peace. Oh, thank God for those brothers. They make a huge difference, okay? But the Israeli lobby, the lobby for a foreign government, does control our Congress. And when I tell that fact, you say that I am hateful. No, you are a liar and you are hateful. You are saying that I cannot defend my people and I must bow my head to a foreign government. You're the racist. I'm not the hateful one. You're the hateful one. Anytime anybody calls you an anti-Semite for opposing Israel, not Jewish people, Israel, you call them a racist. My heart broke for those 36 kids that died on October 7th. And we talked about it on the show immediately that day, and we said this is an outrage, it is wrong. Those kids didn't do anything wrong. 36 poor innocent Israeli kids that died on October 7th. Now when you tell me that 20,000 Palestinian kids don't matter, now I know you're a racist. You just said it. You just said it. I said to you, I am not a racist. I am not an anti-Semite. My heart breaks for your kids. When you say my heart doesn't break for your kids, they're not 36 kids, they're 20,000 kids. But I don't give a damn about them. Well, then you're a racist mainstream media anchor, mainstream media reporter, so-called editors, producers. I challenge the New York Times. I challenge CNN. They've been racist against us from day one, okay? Now, good news. We now have social media, okay? So mainstream media, nighty-night, okay? Nice knowing you. It wasn't. You've been terrible. You've been despicable. You haven't done journalism. You've done the opposite. You've done hateful propaganda against us our entire lives, okay? So I can't wait for you to collapse. I can't wait for you to fail. Good news, I don't have to wait long, okay? So now they're in a world of trouble. They're starting to spin off. Oh, we're spinning this off. We're spinning that. You spin away, brothers and sisters. You're going to spling yourself into oblivion. Why? The core of their problem isn't financial, isn't the changing dynamics of media. The core of their problem is that they don't tell the truth. They're not actual reporters. If you were actual reporters, you would say, obviously this is a genocide. Not one cable news anchor has said that it is a genocide. Not one. Isn't that incredibly strange? 86% of genocide scholars say it's a genocide, but yet our media lies on behalf of a foreign government, and when you point it out, they say, anti-Semite. Wait a minute. I didn't say anything hateful. I'm telling you to have love in your heart. Love in your heart for those poor Palestinians who are being slaughtered. It's hateful to say have love in your heart for Palestinian children? Who's the racist? Who has hate in their heart? You do, and I can't wait for you to end, okay? Now in social media, you all have power. Oh, they don't like that. They don't like that, okay? So when you watch, look, there's two things you need to do. When you watch a show or you support a show, you're saying, here, I want you to take some of my power. I give it to you on loan as long as you're doing the right thing, as long as you're saying the right thing, as long as you're being honest. When I don't watch a show, I'm taking power away from you. So CNN, I'm not interested. MSNBC, Fox News, not interested in your, I don't know if I'm allowed to curse. Okay. So, I'm not interested in that. I take your power away. And you know what? I like this show. I like that show. I give you that power, okay? Piers Morgan, you're against us on Israel. I take your power away. Oh, you changed your mind. You're for us now on Gaza. I give the power back, okay? And I give you more power. Tucker Carlson, I didn't agree with you before on X, Y, and Z. But now you're standing up for justice. You're standing up for humanity in a way I didn't expect and that I love. I give you power, okay? So we work together and we accumulate enough power to make a difference. The second thing you do is your own media, okay? Before, when I started in, and I'm old enough now that I started before there was internet. And so there, you run into the gatekeepers. They're never going to let you on air. Never, ever, ever. And even when I made it to MSNBC and I was their 6 o'clock host, you weren't allowed to say things. There was very strict guardrails. Your work here is on rent, okay? You follow the rules. You listen to our power, our rules, our agenda, and you're allowed on air. If you're not, you're off, okay? But now nobody can stop you. You take out your phones, you do a video. Now, leave this tough stuff to me, okay? But just loving messages, okay? We love all religions. We love all people. We love all humanity. We're the ones for nonviolence. We couldn't be more for peace, right? So don't come at us with any kind of BS about your racial stereotypes or whatever. Muslim Americans are the group that is most in favor of peace, obviously. Every day we go out there, when we protest, when we talk, we say, peace, please give us peace. Please give us peace and nonviolence. We're begging you, give us nonviolence, right? So you don't get to say that there's any issues there. So do that. Go spread love and say, hey, you know what? Palestinian kids are like any other kids. Muslim kids are like any other kids. By the way, Christian kids in Gaza are like any other kids, okay? And our heart goes out to them, and we hope that your heart goes out to them. So engage the American people. Invite them in. We love your brothers. We love this country. Why do we come here? Because we love this country. Because we came here for the freedom. We came here for the equality. We came here for the justice. And we believe in America, and we believe that if we all work together, we will achieve that equality and justice. That's why we love this country, okay? And I think that our belief is going to be rewarded. It's been a long time, brothers and sisters, but first we had to get through the powerful, the politicians and the media that blocked that equality and justice. And social media is swarming now, and we've breached the walls. And they're beginning to lose their power, and they're beginning to panic. That's a beautiful thing. Go out there with more love, more calls for peace and nonviolence, and more calls for America to do what its founding charter calls upon. that we are all born equal and we will fight for each other, okay? So we do that, we win.
Thank you. I think Cenk summed that up really well, and that's a perfect lead-in to what I want to ask next. And that is, as I'm sure that all of us have sort of gone through this, we're on our social media throughout the day. Some of us perhaps to a harmful degree, but we see all of this information and we see all of this, and there is a real advantage that we have in some ways on social media. But what I want to ask is, in what way can we mobilize that and mobilize the amount of people who are seeing the truth, particularly about Gaza and about the genocide? How can we mobilize them to shift from a passive role of consuming all of that information into some kind of action and some kind of something that will lead to some kind of real world change from that? And
well, I think from CAIR's perspective, we try and promote a justice-centered outlook. And do we still use intersectionality, or is that still a thing? But if you notice what we do every day, I personally have a one-man war I'm waging on the Confederacy. I find every time there's a story about a Confederate monument at a courthouse or a Confederate flag in a jury room or something like that. Can you imagine if you're African American and you had to go to a courthouse seeking justice and walk past a monument honoring a slaveholder, white supremacist, traitor to our nation? So most days, Brother Ismail will confirm this, we're putting out stuff about the Confederacy. If somebody who's Hispanic is attacked for being Hispanic in California, we'll issue a statement. If it's anything we can do, Sikhs, or you properly say Sikh, I guess, are attacked, we put out a statement. If there's anti-Semitic incidents, we put out statements on that. We want to be centered on justice so that it's clear to the larger society that we're not just, we're only concerned about Muslims, we're only concerned about Palestinians or Arabs or the Middle East. We're concerned about justice for everybody. So that's what we're trying to put out there. And the media, as a general principle, CAIR never criticizes the media. So because we've seen them as helping us promote a narrative through their reach, we've been always reluctant to. So we'll leave it to you guys to criticize the media.
So I was going to say, I think, we've seen that our community is galvanized around the issue of Gaza and people are sharing. I think it's, for some people, it's a huge risk for them to share on social media, and that in and of itself is their own struggle. But for many of us, it's the easiest thing we can do. It's the bare minimum. And in order to actually change policy, we need to get off our screens and be doing policy change and getting into action. Being part of a member of CAIR or following their calls to action is really critical, as many other organizations are. But we can't just make ourselves feel good about sharing a story on social media. That's not enough. That's not going to move the needle for us. It's one element of the work. And I want to point to some examples like the Black Lives Matter movement. It's a hashtag that went viral, but it was connected to protests that eventually galvanized a huge portion of our community to actually affect change on the corporate side and government and many other places. think of 2017 after the first election of Donald Trump and the Muslim ban, and how Facebook and Twitter were used to galvanize people to go to airports and show up there and actually push back. So we need to create a direct link and calls to action. If you are following someone who's just constantly, posting just to get likes and just to increase their viewership, think about who else you can follow, or get off of that social media platform and say, what organization can I sign up to volunteer for? Where can I show up? How can I write to a member of Congress? Just thinking about the phone banking WhatsApp groups that were established after October 7th. This is a way to use social media to get people to call members of Congress, and we've had many examples of success there, where individuals had to change positions, individuals in power had to change positions. Now, we haven't changed US policy towards Gaza, but it begins that way. And so we have to believe that, that amounts to policy change when we're all doing it and we're doing it effectively.
I would add to that and say, I come from a public affairs background, building big programs for very large institutions to do social innovation. I believe that we can shift the world towards the better, but we need more people involved in that process. We have over-intellectualized, and that's not throwing shade on anybody, but we have so many think tanks and organizations and institutions and brands and logos and this and that and the other, and we have majority of the population that's been left out, where we have people that overanalyze, and we're in this constant strategic rat race where the world and damage in the world is happening much faster than our institutions can keep up with building the systems and the policies to mobilize action. And so what I think the social media, talking about the media landscape, is so important is, I love the saying that we wait for heroes to come rescue us instead of becoming heroes and rescue ourselves. We use bits and pieces from the reports that come out, but we're waiting for organizations to authorize us to take action. Why? We have innate power as Muslims, as people who believe in justice. Everybody has so much potential and so much capacity that we're somehow giving away. And you mentioned power. That is precisely what we are not utilizing. Our capacity is power. We have numbers that, looking at social change theory, all you need is 3.5% of a population to shift in order to create sustainable change on a topic. In the United States, that's 12 million or so people, right? That's not a lot of people. We have access to these people with our shows, with our media, but what we're not doing is we're not inspiring people to understand that they have the power to mobilize, and they are the best mobilizers to shift the discourse, because people trust their friends, people trust their imam, people trust their teachers, more than some random person at a think tank in Washington in some ivory tower coming to tell you what to do and how to do it, right? So as much as I love signing up with institutions and organizations, I am someone who left behind a lot of institutions, a lot of titles, a lot of fancy things, and a security clearance, to be in the streets, because that's where I'm called to be now, because I understand how systems work. And I believe truly that we need to teach other people to understand how systems work and how to build social power to create political change. The one thing I want to also really stress is I think that we are in a time of rebirthing new systems. Think about innovation and entrepreneurship and how it works, right? There's room for ambiguity. There's rooms for uncertainty. There's room for just do it and we don't know if it's gonna work. Why I actually want to unprogram us to unlearn what we think needs to happen is because the systems that we're trying to reprogram were never set up to begin with to actually meet the needs of our communities, which is where I do believe in building new systems. But it also means that we need to mobilize people to understand the power that we have to act and figure it out. And it's gonna be messy, and it's gonna be sloppy, and it's gonna be ugly, and it's okay. Why is it that we are celebrating innovation with technology? Oh, you made a mistake on that phone? Cool, let's make another one. But when it comes to social movements, we somehow want to prescript what perfection and excellence looks like. Be messy, get creative. Think outside of the box. No one needs to authorize our communities to act. We know what Palestine and what our oppressed brothers and sisters and marginalized communities need. And I think the more we can understand that we have social power and we need to just take it and not ask for permission to use it, the more we're gonna see fast progress that meets the needs of our times. and BDS, boycott when you need to, advocate when you need to, speak when you need to, but get out of this rut of intellectual over-analysis, because that's where we're stuck. And we really need to just understand that every single person here doing things differently has a role. And the world we're living in, we want everyone to somehow hate on mainstream media or hate on social media or hate on this, that, and the other. All of us are needed at all times, doing everything we can, working towards a collective goal. And that collective goal needs to be liberation, needs to be humanizing our populations, needs to be understanding our collective power. And that's what we need to be focused on instead of the semantics and the logos. And I'm saying this as someone with just a couple of days ago getting so frustrated at a global coalition looking at changing the discourse on Palestine, where people were literally caught up with who gets credited, which, I swear to God, which institutions get credited and what hashtag do we use? For a week, while Gaza is in a media blackout getting annihilated. And these are the so-called leaders of our movements. Goodbye. I literally exited the chat. Thank you, no thank you. We're building our own. Goodbye. We do not have time to acquiesce to ego, and we need to be honest about that.
So it's funny you mentioned that, because I wrote in my book, Justice is Coming, about permission. We don't need permission. We're American citizens. That's the beauty of being an American citizen. You have freedom. We're all... quick question. Does anybody know what percentage Muslim Americans are? No. I don't mean what percentage of the population we are. How American am I as a Muslim American? Oh, the correct answer is 100%. Okay? I am 100% American. I'm just as American as Donald Trump is, or Joe Biden is, as anybody is. Okay? I don't have to apologize for anything. I don't need permission for anything. The reason I love this country and why we came is because I believe in its founding principles, equality. I am equal to you. You are equal to me. I'm not any better than you. I'm not any worse than you, okay? So I don't need you, thank you very much, but I don't need your permission for a damn thing, okay? And so, and I have the personality of, I can't sit around and wait for other people to do it. I just can't, right? So they said, oh, okay, well, then you're going to need permission to get on a TV show and a radio show and to get on media. I was like, I don't think so. I think I just started, okay? I'll start it and I'll see you at the finish line. Okay, now we got 29 million subscribers on the TYT network. We have 31 billion lifetime views. In that same amount of time, I know guys who are still waiting for permission, right? No, just do it. Now, that brings me to activism, because you can do both, right? You can engage with media and use your power in that way, but you could also do it for activism, and I hope you do both. I do both. So, you know, I mentioned in the other room about, for example, on AIPAC and the Israeli lobby overall. I can't stand it. Again, nothing personal. Can't stand Big Pharma either, right? I hate that we can't negotiate drug prices. Why? What an absurd thing, right? So, but if you're saying, especially not just a corporation, but a foreign government, I'm going to serve that foreign government. Sorry, I'm doing activism. I'm letting everybody know about it. Or, hey, good news for you guys. I'm letting everybody know about it. You're proud, right? You're proud to represent Israel instead of America. Good news, I'm going to tell all the Americans about it, okay? Israel is in the name of AIPAC. And then another organization that helped to defeat Nina Turner, who was a wonderful candidate in Cleveland. Democratic majority for Cleveland. No, I'm kidding. Democratic majority for Israel, right? It's a race in Cleveland having nothing to do with Cleveland or their voters. They have it in their title. We are for a different country. Okay? And we are proud. We proudly represent Israel above all. Congratulations. I'm your best ally. I'm going to tell everybody. Okay? And if that's good and the American people love that you're representing a different government, then they'll vote for you more. You see that? If you're on the right path of righteousness, then I'm your best friend, because I'm going to publicize it. Okay? If you think you're doing something wrong, then you're not going to like me. Okay? Because I'm real media. We do honesty. We do truth, right? And yes, I do activism. So tyt.com/no more. That's for the list of people who are saying a pledge. I will never vote for someone who gets money from the Israeli lobby, because they represent a different government. That's it. No offense. If it was Norway, I'd do the same thing. Okay? Now, the other activism I do is I start PACs, which is crazy. I run a media company. I'm on air. I'm doing interviews nonstop. What am I running PACs for? Because I can't help it, right? So what I did after 2016, Trump wins, I go, okay, how are we going to fight Trump? Well, the way to fight Trump is to get a better Democratic Party, right? They're not going to vote for Hillary Clinton again. Sorry. Establishment's not, nobody likes it, okay? I know you want us to like it, but we don't. Oh, you have to vote for Joe Biden. No, I don't. No, I don't. Look, I can vote against Trump. I could vote my conscience. I could do all these things, and I tell folks what to do like that for a living, okay? But when you tell me, no, you must support the guy who gave Israel another $20 billion to kill your children, no thank you. I'm not interested in that, okay? So I formed Justice Democrats. Why? Because first I went and talked to all the other progressive organizations, not Muslim American, just progressive on the left, et cetera. I said, who's primarying Democrats? Because the problem is the Democratic Party. They're impotent, they're incompetent, they refuse to fight, they refuse to stand up for their own principles, okay? So I'm not against the Democratic Party. I'm definitely not against Democratic voters. I'm for a better Democratic Party. I'm for a Democratic Party that abides by its principles, fights for its principles, okay? So I want to form that party because this ain't it. So who's fighting against incumbents? The answer was zero. Zero. In the year 2017, there were no progressive groups who were helping primary Democratic incumbents. You want to know why? Because they had not received permission. Really? The people in Democratic leadership and the Democratic incumbents didn't give you permission to primary them. Of course they didn't give you permission. If you're asking for permission, you're going the wrong way, brothers and sisters. So we formed Just Democrats, but that's okay. They said, you can't win. That's AOC. She's running against Joe Crowley. Joe Crowley's number 4 Democrat in the country. He raises more money than almost anyone else. He's in line to be Speaker of the House. They used to call him, they're from Queens, the King of Queens, right? And we thought, all right, yeah, but we'll take a shot at it. They didn't receive permission, right? Well, I remember Joe Crowley's staffer said, oh, AOC, she'll lose, she'll get 10%, and she'll go work for the Young Turks. Okay. Hey, does anybody know where Joe Crowley's working today? Because he's the one who lost and needed a job, okay? And I guarantee you it's not Young Turks. I guarantee you it's a lobby, okay? I don't know. But I'd be shocked if he isn't a lobbyist today, okay? Congratulations, Democratic incumbents who work for other governments and corporations and not for us. I got a lobbyist job in your future, okay? We're going to retire you into K Street. So AOC won, Rashida Tlaib won, Ilhan Omar won, Ayanna Pressley won, then later Corey and Jamal and Marie Newman and Greg Kassar and Summerlee and so many others, okay? Now I've got others. He's not in Just Democrats, but probably will be soon. Okay, so now I got other groups, Rebellion PAC, Cavalry PAC, et cetera. They all have a different mission, an important mission. My point is, they told me that it was impossible. And I'm here as a messenger from the past to tell you, we already did it. Okay? And I'm also here as a messenger from the future, okay? We already did it. So do it now, get on board, fight in any way that you think makes sense, fight with love, fight with passion, fight with love for America that we all came here for, that same equality and justice. And whether it's media or activism, I got good news for you. The good guys win at the end.
Thank you. I think we're running a bit over, so I think we're going to have to just close and take some questions from the audience. Yeah, right there.
My name's Sharif Silni. I'm from Maryland. Shout out to Sister Hena. So the Trump cronies have just been handed TikTok like the end of this past week from ByteDance, and you see like the roundtable that he held with the corporate leadership of the technology companies. How much faith do we put in time and effort and energy into some of these tools that are being usurped by the
All right, so first of all, everybody has a different role, and it's okay, right? That's why I think that CAIR being thoughtful about it and building alliances and getting their voice out there and our voice out there is a good thing, okay? And then my role is different. My role is to challenge them, right? And why am I doing that? To push them in the right direction, right? Carrots and sticks, that's elementary politics. So if you said to me, should we go only with sticks? I'd say, no, bring some carrots, right? The problem with Democrats for a long time, a separate topic, but adjacent to that, was all they had was carrots, right? They never had any sticks. Oh, okay, Republicans, we give you this, we give you that, et cetera, but they never fought back, right? So you need both to have a balanced approach. In terms of media, what I care most about is infrastructure, because that's what lays out the rules. If you want to know what's going to happen in any system, look at its coding, okay? So for example, the coding for the United States of America is the Constitution, okay? So the Constitution dictates what will happen. Are you allowed to speak freely? Our founding document, our code says yes, so we're allowed to speak, okay? And every once in a while that gets taken away, but then we go back to the source code and we go, remember, First Amendment, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, all religion, right? Freedom of the press, et cetera. So now when it comes to media, there's two competing boxes, television and the modem box, okay? That box of television that had the networks and cable news and all those guys, that's a closed system, okay? A closed system is always worse because it requires gatekeepers. And if you're a voice for change, you'll have a very hard time breaking into a closed system, because a closed system is going to want to protect the powerful because they're already powerful. Who owns multi-billion-dollar media companies? The powerful, just generically speaking. Do the powerful want change? Are you nuts? Of course not. Who wants to change if they're at the very top? Nobody. That is why mainstream media, their number one opponent my entire life, has been change. They despise change. The people at the New York Times, they don't know that. If you tell them that, they'll be genuinely shocked and think, oh, you're a radical or something, right? No. Their belief is outsiders bad. Right-wing outsiders bad. Left-wing outsiders bad. Outsiders bad. Insiders, oh, please give me your quote, right? Give me your, oh, I need access. What do you need access for? To a bunch of liars who have an agenda, right? Look at their frame of mind. Government official, real, good, the people in power, rich people, they're always like, oh, billionaire donor says this. Okay, so, but, okay, hey, here's Bob, he's saying that. Oh, shut up, you have no power, right? You're telling me you don't have a bias, you have a massive bias, you're a closed system working for the powerful. The modem box is an open system, okay? So now there's huge players within that open system, TikTok, YouTube, et cetera, right? So when we lose one of those, it's a huge problem, and it's a big blow. So TikTok, we looked like it was going to get closed down. Trump says, no, one of my donors gave me a bribe, legalized bribe, so I'm going to keep it open. I said, great. Okay, I mean, you're taking bribes for all the wrong reasons. At least that one works to our favor. Now they're switching it over, and it looks like it's going to get Israeli censors. Okay, so TikTok, I have news for you. You're not the boss of us. We don't have to watch you. And if the reason we were watching you is because you were a rare outlet for truth. We were getting to see the videos from Gaza with our own eyes. And by the way, it drove the Israelis crazy. They've been attacking TikTok with this nonsense thing about, oh, we're worried about China. It has nothing to do with China. And what's amazing is they're so arrogant, they admitted it. Mitt Romney is in a panel just like this. We've played it a dozen times on the Young Turks. And he goes, TikTok wasn't really about China. It was about Israel. And it was, and I'm paraphrasing, and he said, the Israelis normally are really good at PR, but they need our help. I'm like, wow, you're just saying it. You're just saying it. Like, yeah, we were trying to shut down TikTok on behalf of not our government, not our people who love it, but on behalf of a foreign government. And then another panel, and a Democrat admitted it. So we have a Democratic congressman and a Republican senator who say, yeah, we're trying to shut down TikTok for Israel. Okay, so now they get in their censors. Good luck to you, brothers and sisters. The reason TikTok became popular is because it didn't have censors. The minute you put the censors in, we're going to go somewhere else. Okay? So, and if another platforms, and a bunch of platforms have Israeli censors, and they're always proud of it. They're like, oh, we are working with the Israeli government, and all of our decisions run through Jerusalem. I'm like, I don't know if you realize you're telling on yourself. right? And by the way, mainstream media, CNN says the same thing. We have a bureau in Tel Aviv, and they tell us what to do. I didn't say it, you said it, right? So now we're going to go find, if they do that, if they start to censor, we're going to find a new platform. And then you're out of business. Good luck. You bought a steaming pile of garbage because you brought in Israeli censors, okay? Oh, you lost $40 billion? It warms my heart, okay? So, and by the way, if no other platform does it, I'll do it. I'll start a platform on tyt.com, right? So every different political group has tried to cancel me. And of course, Israel's king of cancel culture, they've tried to cancel me my whole career, right? How come I'm still here? Because I didn't wait for permission. I started my own company, I started my own media enterprise, I started my own PACs, and I'm not telling you that so that you join them or whatever, I'm telling you that so you do it, okay? So you have American citizens with unlimited American rights. Use them. Use them in media, use them in activism. You have every right to do it. And tell your brothers and sisters, no matter what religion, race, or party they're in, we're now the tip of the spear. You take away our speech rights, they're taking away your speech rights. You take away our human rights, they're taking away your human rights. As our African brothers and sisters fought for us to have these rights, and by the way, our founding fathers, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, etc., they also fought for those rights. Every generation has fought for it in different ways, okay? And now it's our turn as Muslim Americans. Now we're fighting for not just us, for all Americans to protect our rights. And so we're proud to be part of that tradition. And to the rest of the country, you're welcome.
I want to add on that, though, and bring up two nuances, too. It's never an either this or that. It's this, and what could we do of it? And the reason I brought up earlier the media encampment that we did here in Washington, we weren't there to just shame them for not doing the right thing. We were actually there with pamphlets and information, inviting the journalists that walked out of whether it was Fox, whether it was NBC, whether it was The Hill, whether it was The Guardian, to a conversation on the sidewalk. And there was a notable shift in the language that was used, to the point that I actually had some reporters ask me, what does equity look like? What does this and that and the other look like? We also got access to then information on who in the newsrooms was blocking things, which are names that you didn't even know of because they're not even on their websites. They're not even the ones promoting. It's like names of conspicuous people behind the scenes that are influencing things but are not the people taking the fall for it. Give me their email. Got it. So we were able to build influence, and that's where influence is how you shift things also. We have to be able to be having conversations with people that are not afraid to give information, and it's not the people at the top. They're being monitored, there's too much liability, there's too much this, that, and the other. So when we then confronted some of the editors and some of the senior staff, we literally told them, your own staff leaked us a map of your studios. How does that make you feel? You could see on their faces, they were mortified, right? It was that little seed got planted in their own minds that we have people on the inside that don't like what we're doing. And so all of that stuff helps you build social influence over time. So it's not just protest for the heck of protesting, it's not just criticism, but it's actually coming up with a plan. We've actually had people bluntly tell us, we get criticized all the time, but no one tells us what to do. What is the alternative? Hand me something. Give me something. I actually even reached out to y'all at one point. The toolkits online are 50 million pages long. No one cares. Give them something tangible, direct them to resources, make it easy for them to find, make it accessible. I know you guys have toolkits too. And that is what we found works. And the better conduits of that information are random people like you guys. It's not people with fancy titles, because then that becomes political. Talking to a nonprofit civil rights organization may have politics. If y'all take CAIR's information or, y'all's information and start to be that conduit of information, then it doesn't feel as like, ooh, I can't talk to you, you're representing, this is official, my boss has to be involved. So we learned to build people power that way. The one other thing about the TikTok and all these things, one thing that we've learned through our advocacy is that people do not like to be manipulated. Americans don't. So when all of this gets exposed, and we were able to show them 7 NBC staff worked previously with IOF and did PR and so on and so forth, people get really surprised. They're like, oh my God, this is not public information. So the more that censorship happens, I'm sure you guys saw it on Meta when they were like, she's like, we don't believe in filtering freedom of speech. And then there's a Jewish event of some sort that she spoke at. She's like, we now control Meta. And it's like, that video went viral, and then people were like, ew, that's icky. good. To your point, you're making people realize that you're icky and you're manipulative, and that is great. And so take information and be conduits of figuring out where to place it and how to place it, and just get creative with it. There's no right or wrong for any of this. What we know is that we have a fertile ground and environment to change the narrative in a way that we have never, ever had before. And we have power as a community, and I think we're realizing it.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to say one more thing. Just like you need activists and you need advocates, you need people on the inside, you need people on the outside. It's the same sort of relationship with media. One thing that I would say, Muslims sometimes are afraid to interact with media, even give an interview. Get trained. Every masjid should have a press tab on their organizational website with a trained spokesperson so people can reach out to you and you can present your narrative. A lot of times we're just missing, and policymakers still get 60% of 60% of Americans still get their news from mainstream media, and policymakers get all their news from mainstream media, legacy corporate media. Yeah. So it's and the other thing we are not doing is targeting the money, the corporations that fund them, because if you go after the advertisers, that's what Camera and Honest Reporting, all these Israeli media watchdogs do. They go and talk to corporations, and anytime some positive coverage of Palestine comes up. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and I hope everybody in this room doesn't just leave after listening to all these amazing people speaking. And thank you, Cenk. My son is, I got so much cred because I'm on the same panel as Cenk Uyghur. He's like, whoa. I'm like, yeah, it's hard to impress a 20-year-old. So, and that's the power of social media, right? So, but that is, I hope each one of you takes some point from this and is able to implement it in whatever communities you are working in. If you need media training, I know CAIR does it, we do it. ISPU has a great Islamophobia toolkit that we've used to build our Palestine Media Watch toolkit. So there's so much work that needs to be done.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone. With that, we are a bit over time, so we're going to have to cut it here. Thank you all. Just a big round of applause for all of our panelists. And I'm sure that they'll all be here, so you can ask them things if you catch them. Thank you.